Members of the committee, members of the council, we will come to order. We begin our budget meeting with the acknowledgement of two individuals who we work closely with who have losses over the last few days. The first being Mayor Dean, whose father passed away the end of last week, and then secondly, Scott Potter, whose father-in-law passed away over the weekend, and I know everyone will want to hold both of them and their families in our thoughts as we move through our own lives. We begin with RS 2014-1167, Councilman Stein approves an amendment to the Foreign Trade Zone Operations Agreement between Metro and Osborne Hesse Logistics, LLC. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Councilman Tigert.
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious, where is their operation located now? And I see where they're moving to Mount Juliet.
They're already in Mount Juliet. I think they're moving from one location in Mount Juliet to another.
Okay. I was just curious if there was any Davidson County connection other than we operate the trade zone. Okay.
Right. For members of the council, there's a broader trade zone, and that all passes through Davidson County, even if they are not within the county. Any further questions or discussion on 1167? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1167 is recommended. 1168, Councilmembers Stein, Gilmore, and Langster approves an intergovernmental project agreement between Metro and MDHA for construction of a new parking garage at 505 Church Street. May I have a motion and a second? I thought we would begin with a little overview from Mr. Riebling, and we also, I think, have Mr. Harbison with us and Tom Turner as well. Rich, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, and obviously MDHA Director Harbison is here for any follow-up questions, as well as Tom Turner from the Downtown Partnership. As you know, the partnership has been intimately involved in the operation of the two city-owned garages currently, and so based on their experience, they've been intimately involved in developing some of the financial feasibility for this project, et cetera. I thought it might be helpful just to give you a little background about how this came about and kind of where we are today and why this legislation is in the form it is before the council today. I think that many of us, in looking at downtown and in talking with various business interests downtown, have recognized an ongoing need for additional parking. Every major project that Matt Wilshire and his team prospect that looks at moving into downtown space, the number one issue is availability of parking. It is repeated throughout every discussion of people looking to move downtown and refill the downtown office buildings. What sort of brought this to a head was the owner of one of the major downtown office buildings was looking at, by right, building a parking garage to replace the plaza in front of its building. It had the legal right to do it, but we thought replacing a plaza with a parking garage was not a very good idea for the aesthetics of Church Street and downtown at all, and was really a bad idea. But they had the legal right to do it. And so we started meeting and started looking into the feasibility of developing be a third city-owned garage. Worked closely with Tom Turner and his team on looking at the feasibility. Tom has some expertise on his staff that have been in the parking world for a number of years and know the operations of a garage and know the needs and demands for such. And in the course of that discussion, we started thinking that perhaps rather than the city issuing debt and doing the garage itself, that perhaps we should utilize the services of what we think should be the city's development partner, which is MDHA. If you look at the charter of MDHA and its goals and really kind of why MDHA exists, one of its major functions is the development of downtown. If you remember, it's MDHA, it's the Development and Housing Agency. While most people know it for its housing agency function, it obviously has another critical element of it, which is urban development. And so we started meeting with MDHA about them taking over this project and really running with the project. And in the course of doing so, another reason why we want to do that is just from a historical perspective, seeing the history on the front row and of the council. As you know, MDHA has been intimately involved in a number of downtown projects historically. The arena development, the stadium development, and other urban development downtown. And we wanted to get back to those days where we have really an outstanding working relationship with our sister agency, and felt that this would be a good project for them to take on. New executive director Jim Harbison was excited about the agency getting involved in a project like this, and so we thought it would be from an overall perspective would be a good thing for us to work with MDHA on, and we have the added benefit of really not having to issue any city debt for this, and having MDHA secure the financing. And so been meeting for a number of months, coming up with the financing structure, the size structure, location, a lot of discussions about location, which we can get into if you have questions on that. And it came to us that MDHA, we've been working together on the financing, and we have a financing package in place. And as you can imagine, for MDHA to borrow essentially $30-some-odd million, the lender was looking for some additional security beyond just MDHA, the revenues from the garage. MDHA is sort of unique. It's a lot of its assets are federally owned. It doesn't really have a lot of resources that it could pledge to back up, the debt on this financing. And so we felt it was appropriate because, again, we're partners in this, MDHA and us, that we would utilize the backup financing of the city, similar to what we have done for the ballpark, for the convention center, and other facilities around town where the city provides this backup pledge. Again, we have pro forma, which we shared with council staff, and I believe probably, I don't know, if, John, if you shared that with all the council, but we believe, based on a pro forma, that this garage will pay for itself. We'll work from year one on an operational standpoint. But again, the lenders wanted that additional security by having the city's pledge of its USD non-tax revenues behind it. It's subordinate to the ballpark, as an aside. So that's kind of a little background. I may be going on a little more than you want to talk about, but that's kind of how we got to MDHA, Downtown Partnership, and the city working on this project jointly for the betterment of all of downtown. So, Council, Chairman Stein, other members of the council, obviously, as you course of the discussion, we're all happy to answer any questions, including Jim and Tom in the back.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. When you said that it would pay for itself, would that mean that the cost for per car, I guess, would be factored into this as well, and security as well on this? And then I have a part two.
Yeah, the way it's structured is that all the revenues that are collected at the garage first go to pay the operation of the garage and the debt service, essentially, on the facility. And the pro forma believes that will be enough based on current rates and kind of rates 18 months out when this garage will be open, which are market rates currently received in the market, that assuming certain levels of occupancy and capacity, that the garage will pay for itself. The revenues will cover the debt on the facility. But if there is a shortfall, they would come to the city for the difference, and then the city would get that back out of future surpluses in future years. That's kind of how it'd be structured.
Okay, thank you. But my other comment would be just this: I would love to have a partnership myself on 12th Avenue South. Well, thank you.
When I saw you take the microphone, I thought about that, and I, this could be a model, and to go to the future, because I've been there. In Sylvan Park area where I live, there's parking needs, and I can see as these communities grow, there's a great need for some additional parking.
Councilman Tigert.
Thank you. My questions are for Jim and Tom, I think.
Gentlemen, if you would come to the back podium.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. We've spoken before that some of our downtown churches have used the surface parking lot, downtown Perez, McKendree, and others, And from what I can tell, there was no formal agreement, but the way the structure worked is there was an understanding on Sunday mornings when these churches that have very little parking available to them basically had the right, the ability to use that lot, and if they had special events like a Wednesday night service or the funeral for Gail Kerr that drew large crowds, they could, let the current owner-operator know, and they were given a code to put on their dashboard or to key in. Have there been any conversations of any price breaks, parking space breaks for those type of situations?
Other than that brief conversation on the phone, no. But that's possible. Our first obligation is to make sure it cash flows.
Sure.
We pay it back so the city's not burdened. Our second obligation is to be a public service. So as I told you, I'm open to those discussions. We are still working through schematic design. We haven't even gotten to the exact finite number of parking places with our architect, EOA, and constructor. Once we have that, we've been able to cost out, with more fidelity what our cash flows are, then we can discuss any rates or breaks we can give to local vendors.
Okay.
Certainly, public service is our mantra. That's why we're here. We're not I don't have a board of investors to report to.
Sure. And Tom, you have some comments?
I could add to it. I'd say in the case of McKendree, because they have the structure that they put up that houses all their community facilities and also houses their preschool facility, that they have parking. The Presbyterian Church has parked on this lot for a number of years, as far as I know, since the building was taken down. And so what happens is the church has paid the parking operator and so the end result is the church pays, and then the members of the church basically park for free. I would say, and that's worked out well for them, and I've already talked to a member of the session about parking going forward without making any promises because it's Jim's deal. But the best time for capacity in a parking garage is Sunday morning. So if you're looking to make a little extra money, that would be the time to do it, and you wouldn't have to be at the going rate, I guess you would say, because that's when parking's most available.
Sure.
Second best time is Saturday morning, and after that, you're out of luck.
Absolutely.
And I did just one more point. The adjacent parcel is still owned by the previous owner. It's going to be retained for surface parking under the previous conditions.
Okay.
So it'll be tied up for a period of time during construction when we have to use it for construction, materials, cranes, that kind of stuff. But after that, we return it to the horizontal parking that exists today, and that will remain until his project, whatever his next step is. So that would be another, whatever agreements with the previous owner, I think I would recommend you explore that now, because that's going to be there for a period of time until his plans come together.
Well, that was my next question. At what point is it appropriate for the sessions of these multi-churches to reach out to you all and understand what the financial impact might be 2, 3, 4 years down the road?
Well, we're on schedule, under budget, always a good thing for the developer, but we're only getting started. We have to deliver our guaranteed maximum price to meet our timeline by the 1st of October. Now, once the guaranteed maximum price is in, under the project delivery model, we're locked in and the financing is locked in. So we'll know the number of places, we'll know the design, we'll know what our metrics are. So I'd recommend if they want to come first week in October, that's when we'll have a lot of clarity, because all the major design work and the financial work behind it will be complete.
I'll pass that along. Thank you.
Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as you and I have been here, the number one issue downtown has been parking. And Rich, even though we're waiting to this time of the last year of this particular session, I guess you would say, and parking garages are not something that where there'll be a lot of people at cutting the ribbons, like maybe the park and the ball field and that type of thing. The absolute number one request that I get downtown is or complaint complaint is about the parking, not so much the cost, but the fact that there's just not any there. And I'll always remember, Mr. Chairman, that one of the presidents of the University of Tennessee said the only thing that he was going to do in his lifetime was build 4 garages so that he could get everybody at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville a place to park, and it took 20 years to do it. But this is one thing that you're attacking a problem that, at least for me, is the number one problem downtown. Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you. I agree with what Councilman Garrett just said. I'm supportive of what you're doing here. There is one thing I'm trying to understand, and John, since I'm reading your analysis, I probably depend on you to help me simplify this. On page 3, it says, the agreement provides that the pledge of the USD non-tax revenue will be subordinate to the ballpark pledge, and that these revenues cannot be pledged in the future unless the total revenue collection would exceed 2 times the maximum amount of any debt service lease payments from the prior 2 pledges and any additional secured indebtedness. So on the first part of that, I understand the subordination, but I'm totally lost in the words of the last phrasing.
It's to make sure that there are enough non-tax revenues coming in plus some to cover any maximum amount that Metro could owe in a given year. So that's standard when you're pledging assets. Rich may better be able to speak to the specific twice the amount.
Just to put it in real numbers, my numbers may be off a little bit because I don't have it in front of me, but the ballpark debt's about $3.7 million is the maximum annual debt service on that, if I'm right. I can't remember the exact number. And then this is about $2.9 million, I believe, $2.7 million is the maximum debt service. So you have, somewhere around $6.5 million of debt. We currently collect somewhere between $14 and $18 million of non-tax revenues. So we're well under the 2 times coverage. But if we were going to pledge something else, the key is they want to make sure that there's at least 2 times adequate coverage, as Mr. Cooper said, before we could incur any additional debt that was pledged by this.
Oh, okay. So that's I guess that's the piece that I'm not comprehending there. So any future pledges,
right,
whether it would be 1 or 2 or whatever, at a point in time when those pledges would go below the 2 times,
right,
then that's when
the maximum potential liability of the city, which that we're liable potentially,
right,
not going to be in the real world, but potentially for that full $6.5 million. If we did something and added another $2 million to it, that'd be like $8.5 million, and we may not have enough revenue to do that, so we couldn't do that $2 million.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councilman Langster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Riebling or John, believe it or not, I do get some complaints about parking downtown, if I could piggyback off of Councilman Garrett here. But the one issue that I heard lately, that a lady went downtown and she had to park and she had to pay $25. Is that the going rate for parking downtown now?
I defer to Mr. Turner probably for more details, but I think that some lots at some events are charging that much. I think that, Tom, you might want to walk through kind of how you see the special event kind of parking for this facility.
I think, and you are seeing a lot of rate increases on special events, especially where you have multiple events on the same day or night. And so proximity is the key factor there. So if someone wants to park next to the front door, they may end up paying $25. We've seen it higher. We've seen it, higher in other cities too, enough that, would make you hold on to your wallet.
Oh.
What we're trying to do, I think, with this facility and the location of it, is that because it's on Fifth Avenue and has a straight shot down Fifth Avenue, it can serve the Ryman, it can serve everything on Broadway, it can serve T-Pack. So it's got a lot of different points of interest there, along with Bridgestone and the Skirmerhorn. So we think a market rate for this garage is going to be closer to the $7 range, $5 to $7. The market could change in the next 2 years. We like to help set the market. I try to help set the floor, not go below the floor where it doesn't make sense, but try to keep rates down as to make it as flexible as possible for people coming in.
And one other point, I'm glad to hear that $7 number. I mean, that's not close to 25 at all. But when you put out your RFPs and you find who will be doing the construction, please don't forget minorities and women. Women are not always thought of as flag persons, but please consider them for positions there, and especially minorities. Mr. Harbison.
Yeah, Edith, you can come visit, and I'll go through the details with you, but R.C. Matthews is the constructor. They've hired a reputable gentleman whose name escapes me. I'm sure everyone would recognize his name if I could remember it. That's their specific consultant for DBE, and we have a 30% target. So that's our goal. We hope to meet it, and we're taking it very seriously.
Thank you.
Councilman Bedney.
I always like to move over so I'm not in front of them in the TV. So I just asked you a question, but I wanted it on the record. One of the problems in Nashville is when we build a parking garage that where the people walk, they're walking by a flat wall. That's not inviting for people to walk and use the city. It's not very urban. So I was just wondering if you could talk about what you guys are planning on doing at the ground level to deal with that. Thank you.
We have our schematic design architectural review tomorrow. One of the requirements is the first floor will be retail. So as you walk by, you're going to see a lovely retail site of some type. We can't tell you what that is yet, but that will be leased. We think that square foot area is going to be around 16,000 square feet of retail space. And the parking garage will not be known or seen as a parking garage because of the external skin. It's one of our design requirements. Does that answer your question?
Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of smart parking technology emerging, and where you can look and see where the parking is available and what it costs. Where will that be able to be incorporated into this design?
Well, the short answer is yes. I can give you a lot more detail if you want. Walker Parking Garages Consultants, which is the nation's leading consultant in technology and innovation in parking, is a consultant on our job. We've hired them to give us that input and make sure that we have that, including things with your iPhone and technology that I can't do justice to. But, Burke, again, if you want to come by, I'll be glad to give you the brief.
Back for round two, Councilman Tiger.
Yeah, just a quick question. Rich, any impact on our bond rating because of this deal?
I don't see any, no. I mean, it's relatively small amount in the scheme of things. That's all a lot of money, but I don't see.
To
any
you,
impact
it's
whatsoever.
insignificant. To me, goodness gracious.
Well, I know. I have to be very careful when I say that because to me, it's very significant in my personal life. But we're dealing in here a little different numbers. But no, this is again because you're going to have revenue to pay for this garage, at least some revenue to pay for the garage, and clearly we think more than enough to cover it, so it'll have no impact at all.
Do the pro formas take into account the good times and the bad times, if any?
Yeah, I think because it's not running at full. It doesn't. The performer's not at 100% all the time, or so it's based on monthly parking, which of course would be discounted because you give a lower monthly rate, and it has some daily parking, and then special event parking. So, and it's based on real world experience. It's not a made up number, but what Tom and his team have been able to see at the library garage and here in this facility. So it's using those rates, kind of looking ahead a couple of years, and kind of using those percentages. And again, as I said earlier, in that location, essentially at 5th and Church, or kind of between Church and Commerce, is an ideal location to serve almost all of the downtown office buildings, as well as the entertainment facility. So when we started looking at a garage, we wanted to keep it as kind of serve all those worlds, not just serve Bridgestone or the downtown, but try to take advantage of night parking as well as the monthly office workers in the downtown area.
Who's purchasing the property?
MDHA would purchase the property.
And that was done through an appraisal process?
There's appraisal on the process and then negotiation with the owner in terms of what he would sell it for.
Are we paying above appraisal?
It's above appraisal, yes.
How much above?
I'd say probably, I don't have it in front of me, but I'd say $1 million or more above appraisal.
Okay.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add a footnote to this conversation. Parking on Friday nights, folks who want to come downtown, they can make a drive to Hip Donaldson, park free in the RTA parking lot, and ride into Nashville for $1.70 each way. And as long as they're back at the train station at 10:30, then they go right back to their car that has been parked free for the night. It's a great way to enjoy the train.
We encourage everyone to do that.
And encourage everybody to do that.
Brought to you by the RTA. Councilman Garrett. Hip Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Honorable Lancaster, when Mr. Chairman and myself and Councilman Taggart here were campaigning in 2007, right directly across the street from the Presbyterian Church, it was $20 a day to park, and we had some forms that we had to do. So for you to talk about it, that's been nearly 7 or 8 years. So that's the difference in today and 2007.
Councilman Garrett, I never feel quite so old than when you speak and include me in the conversation. Seeing any other comments on 1168? Seeing none, those in favor of recommendation say aye. Opposed, no. 1168 is recommended. Thank you, gentlemen. 2014-1169, Councilmembers Stein and Lancaster approves an annual state grant of $29,600 to the Metro Arts Commission for the Arts Build Communities program. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1169 is recommended. 1170, Councilmember Stein and Lancaster authorizes the Metro Arts Commission to accept a $10,000 donation from the Nashville Local Organizing Committee for the Women's Final Four. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1170 is recommended. 1171, Councilmember Stein and Pardue approves an application for a state juvenile accountability block grant of $46,743 to juvenile court. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1171 is recommended. 1172, Councilmembers Stein, Pardue, and Lancaster approves a state grant of $39,836 to the state trial courts to provide funding for Metro employees to receive training to improve the criminal justice system's response to violence against women. Moved and it is seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1172 is recommended. 1173, Councilmember Stein and Pardue approves an agreement between the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and the Metro Police Department for continued assistance with the Middle Tennessee Drug Enforcement Task Force. I have a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1173 is recommended. 1174, Councilmembers Stein, Maynard, and Lancaster approves a state grant of $380,000 to the Metro Board of Health for the Healthy Start program. Moved and seconded. Councilwoman Moore.
Quick question. I know it's a grant. I just wanted to know how they're going to, is this a new program?
No, it's a continuation.
It's a continuation? Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 1174 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1174 is recommended. 1175, Councilmembers Stein, Maynard, and Lancaster approves an amendment to a contract between the Board of Health and Vanderbilt for the Health Department's participation in the Tuberculosis Trials Consortium by replacing the budget for the prior grant period with a revised budget of $34,226. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 1175 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1175 is recommended. 1176, Councilmember Stein and Maynard accepts a donation of $160,500 from the estate of James Bomar Talbot for the benefit of the Metro Animal Care and Control. It's moved and seconded. I'm understanding today from a local reporter who is trying to write more about Mr. Talbot that he also made a significant bequest to Williamson County Animal Control, and I think local news media is trying to find out more about this very unusual and very remarkable donation from this gentleman's estate. Are there other questions about 1176? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1176 is recommended. 1177, Councilmembers Stein and Tigert approves a grant of $63,924 from Greenways for Nashville to the Parks Department to provide funding for the salary and benefits for the Development Coordinator of Greenways. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1177 is recommended. 1178, Councilman Stein approves an application for a state recycling grant of $97,030. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1178 is recommended. 1179, Councilmembers Stein and Dominy approves amendments to 3 agreements with the State Department of Environment and Conservation regarding the maintenance of closed solid waste facilities. It's moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 1179 say aye. Opposed, no. 1179 is recommended. 1180, Councilmember Stein, Dominy, and others authorizes Metro to enter into an agreement with the City of Belmead for the acceptance and treatment of sewage flow from Belmead system and approves amendments to similar agreements with the cities of Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Laverne, and Millersville. Moved and seconded. Are there questions, comments? Seeing none, those in favor of 1180 say aye. Opposed, no. 1180 is recommended. 1181, Councilmembers Stein and Hunt approves a grant of $100,000 from Smart Growth American to the Planning Department to establish a framework for measuring progress towards metrics to improve public health, protect the environment, and enhance public involvement in transportation decision-making. Moved and seconded. Are there questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of 1181 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1181 is recommended. 1182, Councilmembers Stein and Hunt appropriates $250,000 in state funds to Metro Planning for a new staff position to perform regional bike and pedestrian planning and coordination activities. Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1182 is recommended. 2014-1183, Councilman Stein authorizes the Department of Law to settle the personal injury and property damage claims of Hebo Getty and Ahmad Jamali against Metro in the amount of $35,000 and the claim of Bunhum Mornarth against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $19,000. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Solomon, do you or your staff want to go over this a little bit for us at all? Or we'll answer questions. Councilman Tigert.
Thank you. I don't know who the appropriate person is, but my first question is the question about the ECC Center receiving numerous 911 calls about this missing manhole cover. Do we know what the definition of numerous is?
We have Mr. Kennedy's here from Water. I don't know if he can answer that particular question. Mr. Solomon, do you have any?
Yeah, we've got a couple of people here as well. Okay. John, do you have answer that question, or we can get Patrick or Andrew up here as well?
I don't know how many calls were received.
Will you introduce?
This is Patrick Bradley of our office, who's the kind of the number one chair in this particular case. So
it was 4 or 5 calls that they received in I think it was a 10 or 15 minute period regarding the missing manhole cover in this case.
Okay, then how long did it take Metro to respond to the 4 or 5 calls?
I think that within an hour or two of those calls coming in, Metro had sent someone in water services out to those calls, so there wasn't really a problem of response time in this case.
Well, if there's a hole in the road, does the police respond first before Metro Water and Sewer goes?
I think that they could have had somebody from the police go out there, but I think that they contacted water services immediately. I'm not aware of a police officer responding to the 911 calls because it was a missing manhole cover.
Was it in a driving lane or the center of the road, or what location was the missing cover?
The missing manhole cover was in a driving lane of White Bridge Road. If you're heading from, let's say, Nashville State Tech Community College towards Charlotte Avenue, before you reach Charlotte Avenue, traveling in the left-hand lane, I believe, and it was in the actual driving lane, very close to where the median lines were marked there.
All right, I guess that's my first curious question. To me, a hole in the road is serious enough that somebody should be dispatched sooner than an hour or two later.
And I apologize, Councilman, I don't have the exact time of how soon it was after these calls came in that water services went out to the scene. I think they sent someone out immediately once they got the call. It may have just taken them a little bit of time to get there.
Okay, I guess I'd be interested in, before tomorrow night, if there was a timeline of
I'd be happy to
report, and I'm just curious about that. All right, so John, the next question is, the employee comes out there, drives up and down White Bridge Road, doesn't find anything?
Correct.
What were his instructions, his or her instructions?
I don't know specifically, but he probably got a work order through a computerized dispatch that says, go out and find a missing manhole and replace it, or manhole cover, excuse me.
Sure. Well, when Mr. Potter and I talked about it, he said the instructions were to drive, look for a missing manhole cover, but there were no specific instructions given to inspect any of these covers.
Most of the time when we get a report like this, we get you're on your cell phone, you see something missing, and you report it at a general location. So when they go out there, they're not looking for a specific exact manhole. They're looking for any manhole in the area that might be off. So that would have been more the general instruction.
So would it be usual or not usual for an employee to physically get out of the vehicle and inspect covers looking for a problem that 4 or 5 citizens have reported?
I mean, if you're looking for a missing manhole cover, it's going to be obvious when you drive up on it. I mean, obviously this is an unusual situation and we've not experienced this before. From now on, anytime we get a specific location, they're going to inspect that piece of infrastructure very carefully before they say everything's good.
So the policy before was not specifically directed to tell the employee, block the road, do what you need to do to inspect manhole covers in the area for potential problems?
Right. Most of the time when they pop, it's not because something's broken. First of all, it's very rare that one will come out. So this was just a very unusual situation, and now that we know that this can happen, we're going to be sure that they get out. I mean, if you're familiar with White Bridge Road in Charlotte, that's a very, very busy intersection there, and obviously it would be a disruption to traffic. We'd have to have either police or flagging in that area, but we're not going to let this happen again.
Sure, and it's good to hear that this is a strange occurrence that hasn't happened a lot, but I guess what caused it to break? Is it the age? Is it stress, defective?
I don't know the specifics on this, but there are probably thousands and thousands and thousands of cars that hit this every day. I would imagine it's pretty much just wear and tear.
So will there be a annual inspection program or biannual or once every 10 years? Will there be a program established to inspect manhole covers for this type of evidence of this type of issue in the future?
We do inspections on a regular basis, but if one of these things break, unless we happen to notice it or catch it through a routine inspection, we're likely not to know about it.
Okay. And my final question is, I don't quite understand the sentence in Mr. Cooper's analysis. The employee does not recall whether he exited the vehicle to inspect the cover. Would a report not show that what the remedial action occurred? I mean, I just can't imagine that 4 or 5 calls come in, you drive by, it's like I report to my roofer, my roof's leaking, he goes up there and doesn't find anything, goes home, the next rain it leaks again. I mean, there's a problem here. 4 or 5 people have called, and I just don't understand the statement about...
I think the difference here between your roof and this manhole is that there's a lot of people out there, other metro agencies, good citizens, that they see a situation like this, if they can shove that manhole back into that hole and solve the problem, they will. And a lot of the times that when we get a report of something that's missing, by the time we get out there, it's been replaced. So I imagine his report back in was that no missing manhole was found. In retrospect, again, if we get a report of a specific manhole at an exact location, we're going to get out there and we're going to check that thing and make sure it's not broken.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further comments on 1183? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1183 is recommended. 1184, Councilman Stein authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Melissa Sanchez against Metro in the amount of $9,500. So moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 1184 say aye. Opposed, no. 1184 is recommended. We have one bill on second reading. Council members Duval, Stein, and Dominy authorizes Metro to enter into a participation agreement with Old South to fund a portion of the operation and maintenance of a public pressure sewer extension at the Harvest Grove Phase 2 development. Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 845 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 845 will be recommended. Thank you, members of the committee and the council. We stand adjourned.